Alrighty. Okay, cool. I'm here with Shane today, and Shane has just kindly offered to come on and give an insight into kind of his preparation for his record attempt. I'm really grateful for Shane for doing this because obviously, it's a big thing to do to come on and talk about it, and ultimately, on the day, unfortunately, as a three, didn't achieve what they wanted to, but. I think Shane, as we saw on the day, actually put in a really good shift himself and hit all the numbers he needed to hit. So yeah, thanks for coming on, Shane.
Yep, no worries, mate.
Appreciate that, mate. Cool. So obviously, like some people, won't know you necessarily as well, and perhaps don't know your background, mate. So maybe you could just give us a bit of an insight into the context of this journey, what you used to do, and why you, I guess, ultimately why you wanted to do this.
Well, I guess we go back to the real start. Like it wasn't even my idea. I just kind of went along for the ride. It was Jimmy Samuels who was in our team for the record. He was the sort of the one who planted the seed, and I guess I kind of thought, oh yeah, I'm probably getting a bit old for this sort of thing. I was carrying a few injuries, and I'm sort of in my 40s now. Um, and but I kind of knew I could get around a few sheep, and if I trained well enough and looked after myself, that it could, for me, it could be a bit of a possibility. So I guess that's where it all kind of started. And like my background, I guess, going back further from that is I've been a shearing contractor for almost 20 years now, and I guess I've been shearing for about probably 27 years. Yeah, it wasn't my first choice when I left school. I was actually training to be a lawyer, and down in Dunedin. So I spent 4 years down in Dunedin, and shearing was just my summer holiday job, which was a pretty good job to have actually while I was a scarfie. And yeah, then it just an opportunity came to buy a run locally here in Hunterville, and I wasn't really enjoying the grind of reading heaps of texts and around studying and that sort of thing, and a wool shed or out in the open seemed like it was a better fit for me. So shearing was the the avenue I went down, and yeah, I've done a couple of other jobs on the way there. I was a bit of a rugby coach here for a year or two, and while I was sort of contracting, had a bit of a time out from that, and yeah, pretty much just sort of got into this record bizzo, and that's when I reached out to you.
Yeah, cool. So at that point then, so the point where you thought, right, I'm going to speak to Matt about this and see what his thoughts are. What any expectations at that point, or anything that you were maybe surprised about in the initial stages of that journey?
I guess like for me, like you've obviously had a lot of success, and athletes have had a lot of success, shearers in particular, with you and your training programs, for record attempts. So for me, I just thought I'd have to have the best help that I could get, and that's why I approached you straight off the bat, and yeah, I needed every little advantage I could get because, like, within our team, I'm not the fastest shearer by no means, and I knew I was going to have to put in a massive effort in behind the scenes and not just on the handpiece. It was going to have to be the training, the fitness, and the recovery and everything. Nutrition, hydration was going to have to be on point for me to do what I needed to do. Yeah, so and then early parts with the program was a little bit of a hiccup. I almost broke my leg, had a bit of a quad bike accident right at the start, so that sort of set us back a month. Yeah, that was a bit unfortunate, but we thank the Lord it didn't break, and it was just a real bad hematoma, and yeah, we got through that part. I think I've definitely had, like, my background is rugby, and I've definitely been on some training programs where they've been a lot harder. And I think it's just from a pure aerobic type of background and just physical nature. I mean, this was physical, don't get me wrong, but it was kind of different because we had a lot more down days as far as like with the stretching and the mobility, which end up being a real key to probably how my body functioned on the day and leading up to the record. So it was for me the training. It wasn't necessarily hard. What I found hard was actually going to work and then training, or training before I went to work. That was the part I found hard, and just trying to manage that. When you, especially over like prelim, it's cold. You're getting up at 4 in the morning and having to train for probably 45 minutes or an hour sometimes, and then leaving at 5:30 and trying to get yourself ready before you go. Yeah, I found those days difficult. Leading over those winter months.
Yeah, and I think like like you alluded to that, I'm always very cautious, and I'm well aware that without actually being a shearer myself, I'm well aware of how physical the job is, and I think that's why the way in which I tend to program, just sort of bears that in mind. I think, like I say, what we can't afford to do is just keep smashing people, because that's not particularly intelligent, and possibly not the best way to get the best out of people. So like you say, I think this is something that what you just said there is something I've heard nearly every time. Nearly every time. Is like, it wasn't the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was definitely like, there was a reason for it. So
Yeah.
obviously, yes, we navigated around some of your injuries and bits and pieces, and then you went off to Australia. So yeah, do you want to just talk us through that sort of time, that period, and how that related to the record?
Yeah, so like my time in Aussie, I spent 2 months over there, and I've got to say it was just ideal for me because we kind of finished our prelim, and I went over there for 2 months, and nothing was really happening back here, so I didn't have to be the contractor. I was just working for Hendo over in Badgingarra, north of Perth, and he was awesome to work for. Like, he set up a gym, built himself a massive shed behind his roadhouse there, and there was quite a few of us actually in that gym. There's a couple of the girls were in there and a couple of shearers, and so there was a bit of a crew of us actually working out either before work or after work.
Nice.
And like the gears in there, they weren't flash. I mean, there was a bench, a little bit of it wasn't really a squat rack. It was like I used it as like a modified squat rack. It was more of one of those you put your elbows on and do like leg lifts and things like that. So I used that as a squat rack. Yeah, but it was more than enough. There was enough weight there, and the program. I think I told you what we had, and there was a bike. So yeah, there was plenty there, and like all I had to do was just go to work. All the kai was done, come back, train, grind up, shower, go to bed, and just do it again. Go and repeat the next day. So 2 months of that I think it set me up really well for coming back home. Excuse me. And so when I got back home, it was sort of like I think I sort of hit quite a good level by the time I got home, and then it was just it was really trying to fine tuning. Well, not really fine tuning. I guess I was still putting in the grunt work for probably from 6 weeks out, but then once we got real close to the record, it was more about just bringing back that volume a bit more because I was working pretty hard during the week and the Wednesdays leading up. Like Luke Mullins was my second, and we had a good chat, and he just wanted me every four Wednesdays before the record that I just needed to go as hard as I could on a Wednesday. So we kind of added that in the program and made sure we didn't load up either side of those days. They were more recovery days, and I'd go to work and I'd just work as hard as I could, and actually come through those parts really well. So gave me a lot of confidence going into the record on the day, especially the week before. None of those days I think I actually did a full day because we either cut them out or something happened or we had a shed change or whatever. So but there was the one day before, the Wednesday before the record, that we had almost a full day of lambs. We ran out about 4:30, and so I did 515 at that stage. But the number didn't worry me so much. It was more how I felt that day. And so my daughter she was on me all day, and I said to her, and I tried to do the hydration as good as I could, as far as what it would be on the day and the nutrition. I was doing stuff like weighing myself and see how much weight I was losing over the run. I wasn't too far apart. It was like maybe a kilo, which means I was, not too far away from the from hitting my hydration targets.
Yep.
And then actually I felt really good. I had maybe just a little bit of a sore back because it was a bit of a cross-board drag right towards the end. But yeah, at 4:30 I thought I was going to be buggered, but I wasn't. And then the next day I recovered sweet as and just went back to work. So it was gave me some real confidence sort of a week out that I was going to be okay.
Yeah, I like that. And actually, do you know what? That's one thing I think that as well from the preparation that we did with you, I really liked that idea of picking a day each week and actually structuring everything around that day in the week to make sure that you can do that. And I thought that was, but on my notes in my little black book, I've got like of things that I think went really well for an individual. I think that was one of the things I wrote down. Um, and there were a few other things as well which I really liked about what we did, but I thought that was a really good thing. So I think probably credit to Luke on that one, because between you and him, you put that together. So that's cool, mate. So then obviously that was the lead up to the record, and yeah, let's not beat around the bush. You didn't get the result you wanted, but I was there actually in the shed watching you shear, and I said to you at the time, you looked great, you were on point, going in the pen with conviction, bringing them out, and I've spoken to, I was chatting with Matt Smith about it, and he said like, he watched you and he was like, yeah, like, you were going in there, with intention and going for it, and so I think like obviously for you, yeah, the end result wasn't what we wanted, and that's just putting it mildly. But I think, walking around here with your head held high, that you were hitting the numbers you needed to break that record. So obviously, yeah, is there anything there that you'd like to mention? I know obviously after the record, you've had some real good days too. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess obviously disappointed with the result. And on reflection, there's a few things that could have done differently, and without blaming anything, the day didn't really line up for us weather-wise, and there was a few other factors that just kind of weren't ideal. But you get those on a record day, and you got to deal with those obstacles and just, I guess, prepare and have solutions for those things as best as you can when they happen. I think, yeah, on the day itself, I guess like all the training I was doing, and especially those 6 weeks leading into it, like not only physically was I ready, but mentally I was probably as ready as I've ever been for anything. Yeah, I was in quite a good space mentally. Like, yeah, I think your program doesn't just develop a physical fitness, but it actually develops a mental hardness and resilience, which you obviously need for something like this. And for me, yeah, I haven't been shy, and in these sorts of areas. Like I've played some high level rugby, and I've been in those sort of in those atmospheres before we sort of had high performance. So just ticking off all the little things that you need to do, like 1%ers, so it's a bit of an overused phrase in the rugby coaching world, or in that arena, is doing the 1%ers, or the getting your detail correct, all the micros. So for me, it was just about sitting down and actually, I talked to a few guys like Justin Bell and Luke and a few other guys, Stu Connor, just about writing down all the things that might go wrong and actually have some solutions for those things. So that on the day you're actually mentally prepared and you don't get, freaked out. You can just sort of, okay, I was expecting that. Now I can just deal with it. I've got a plan. So, it's not just being physically prepared. There's a whole lot of other factors that'll you've got to be prepared for.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a little bit of background in high performance, I think, actually helped me a little bit through this process.
I think so,
Yeah,
mate.
just
Because I think the other thing I wrote down was about the questions that you asked and the regularity of our communication. I think that was another thing that I think I took from the work we did in the preparation for that was definitely like your attention to the to booking in a call with me. And the other thing I thought was really good was like the questions that you asked as well. And then that meant that I was able to adapt the program when I needed to, like at the point of time that was relevant. Um, and so I think that all the compound effect of that just contributes to the overall success of of that process. So we can have the conversations around the one percenters because we're dealing with the basics all the time. Pointless having the conversations about the one percenters if the basics aren't there. And the people who get the best results are the ones who communicate the best, really. And that's the way I see it. Um,
and probably just to add on to that, like I was well, probably not everyone else knows, but I was carrying quite a few injuries when I had a knee op done 18 months ago, and I had an elbow operation back in March. So, and like as soon as I got to Aussie, they both flared up. So I was managing those, and then I started developing carpal tunnel syndrome in my right hand, using the new slimmer hand pieces. So yeah, and just those weekly catch ups were gold because I was just able to tell you, like, man, I can't do these fucking squats this week, or I can't, even just trying to do those where I'm in like a press up hold, like I was collapsing under my elbow because just going from second chair over here in the wintertime to going straight into full wall merinos over there, man, my arm was on fire. So I actually had to spend a bit of time, managing that quite a bit with ice and anti-inflammatories, and thank goodness, a good friend of mine is a surgeon, so he managed to sort me out with a bit of high-powered cortisone and stuff to get me ready for the record. And yeah, I think if we didn't have those catch-ups and it was just give me a program and I'll see you in a month's time, it wouldn't have worked.
oh
It
no.
probably wouldn't have results, and I probably would have worked myself through those injuries, and you know, probably wouldn't have performed as like I did on the day. So yeah, those weekly catch-ups and just managing my load, injuries, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's probably a bit different for maybe a few other athletes. I'm not sure that you've dealt with in the past, but yeah, when you get into mid 40s like that, those things are just going to be part and parcel.
Yeah, 100%, mate. Especially when you've played a sport like rugby. And I've been lucky enough, I think, to coach other athletes in other sports who've come from a background that played rugby. Obviously, having played rugby myself gives me a bit more insight into into that the nature of that, and I've firsthand experienced those issues. But I think, yeah, understanding how to take someone who's, had their shoulders smashed up, in many contact in a scrum potentially, and then suddenly they want to do a triathlon. We have to work around ways of them actually being able to swim. So, I've seen it in other areas as well. Yeah, cool, Shane. So look, I appreciate your time. Is there anything else, obviously, that you wanted to just before, like, as we just wrap up here? Anything else you just
Yeah,
wanted to mention?
just probably post how I've been sharing or how I've been feeling post the record. It's been a month now, and to be honest, I haven't really done much training. In the last month, I've sort of taken a good 4 weeks off, and we're just sort of starting back on a bit of a routine now. But we got off to a bit of a slow start with the weather at the start of this year. But since I've been back, I was thinking, oh, this is going to hurt. But maybe one day, and then I was back into sharing some pretty good numbers after that, and just being able to back it up day after day. So I think that's even though I had 4 weeks off, I think just the work that was done for the previous 7 or 8 months beforehand has actually carried me through now. So it hasn't taken long to. I feel like it. Bang! As soon as the record finished, back into beers and eating a bit of shit food, and then a bit of weight. But then straight as soon as I got back into work, it was like, oh, sweet, my body's actually handling this all right, and I'm rearing to go again. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I
I
think
like
post the record, having that base fitness is yeah, served me pretty good so far.
and that's it, isn't it? It's like I think I always say to the guys, lots of the shearers I work with, lots of them who are not going to go for records, but like I say to lots of those guys, I say, look, if we can get you doing, you know, your personal bests, but like day in, day out, like, the and that's what we're really aiming for. We're not just aiming for like one day where, you're hitting a really good number. We're actually going to hit really good numbers most days because we're in a much better place. But that takes time, and there's a process that you got to go through to build that resilience. And there's many other factors around. It's not just about fitness. There's obviously there's skill and sharing IQ, that kind of stuff like that you develop over years. So yeah.
And no doubt for me that has been, I've learned quite a bit around my pattern and conserving energy and getting better at handling the sheep. So yeah, that's been an added bonus as well.
Yeah, awesome. Right, Shane, we better break. You need to go to bed and get some sleep. But mate, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your journey with us. And I hope it helps inspire other people to, whether they're shearers or not, just to hear that journey. Maybe maybe you've had setbacks injury wise, and and you think, oh, maybe I'm, I'm a certain age, and maybe I'm not. I think you've basically crushed those two things. And yeah, thank you for your efforts, mate. And like I say, we're obviously going to be ticking away in the background, just keeping ourselves ready, and we'll see what happens.
Yep, awesome. Cheers, mate.
Thank you, buddy.